a connector, or actually an application for the Microsoft Teams product. We're going to look at the Stack Overflow application. Um, Stack Overflow is a public website that developers use to ask questions, or if you're really good, you go in and answer questions that people have about development. And as we can see right now, I'm on Stack Overflow, taking a look at it, and on the homepage, you can even see a sampling of some of the top questions. You get some idea of which ones are being answered, which ones are being looked at, things like that. And as you can see, there's lots of different subjects here. There's some questions about Python, some questions about the Django, which is PHP, some JavaScript stuff. The entire site's organized by topic categories, technology topics, and I'm not going to go into a lot on how to use Stack Overflow itself, but just understand that's what it's all about. It's broken up into certain technologies and certain questions and answers on this public site that that people use. So really a developer-oriented site. Before we get into the app, though, what's important to remember is you need an account on the Stack Overflow site in order to set up the application in Teams. Um, which most developers probably already have an account. I think most of the developers who are going to use this application in Teams probably are very familiar with Stack Overflow as it is. So I won't really go into a lot about that other than to point out that piece of information. So let's go over to Microsoft Teams. And let's take a look at how the app works, how we add that app to a team, how to configure it, and then we'll take a look at what the results look like for that app. Now, being that it's an application, or more similar to a bot than to say other connectors, you don't use the add a tab button like we have with Forms or Planner or some of the others. To use this, you add it as an app from the App Store in Teams. So you hit app, and then start searching for Stack. Stack Overflow will become the first app that pops up, and you just click on it to add this app. And as you'll see, it asks you to add to a team. And the very first screen is to define which team. So I'm gonna just type a little bit of text for my team, and you see the drop down immediately shows me the list of teams that have my search parameters, and this is the team that I wanted to use for this demo. And as you see, I get the setup as a connector. Uh, which will give you the first clue as to some of the confusion about connectors in Teams. Some connectors act like windows to something else. Some act like bots. So it's tough to say. And even here, I'm talking about it as an app versus a connector, because I try to distinguish between what some of these things are doing to help out with the confusion. But this is technically a connector, even though it behaves like a bot or an app in here. So what you'll see in the very beginning of this configuration is, as you add this to a team, you configure all of the data. And the first thing is you have to set up an account. Now, I've already used the Stack Overflow account in another team in this environment, and that's why my account is already here. Yours will probably be empty, so and you won't have this add link. You'll have one. That's all you'll have, is to add one, and this walks you through signing in to Stack Overflow basically, and everything. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time showing you how to log into a website. That's really what it does. Is the first time you use this connector, you have to log into a Stack Overflow account that it will be used to show the results in this channel, or in this team. Now, this one, the second piece is a name. It's a name for the configuration. It's arbitrary. I tend to go with what I'm configuring this particular connector to do. Because you'll see in the next question, I have to put in tags. So this is, think of the tags as a search criteria. And let me step back a second over to Stack Overflow, and you'll see on each of these questions, they're tagged with certain technologies. So you can see this question's about Python, this one's about JavaScript, this is about C Sharp. Uh, Over here, when you set up this connector for your site, you're going to see you're going to want to set up those tags so that you get questions and answers about that particular tag. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll put a tag for I'll put in Python for my tag, and what this will do is it will pull up a drop down. You'll see the different topics of Python that I can bring up. So I'm just going to put in, I can put in the general one, but I'll put in some 3.x and then anything about the Django, which is a web model. Um, and these are my search criteria. So now what this connector will do is anytime there's a question about Python 3 and Django together, it's gonna put some information into my team. And so when it comes to naming this, I tend to try to name my configurations similar to the tags that I used, just to help me keep things organized. And so users of this, uh, or I shouldn't say users, the viewers of the team, the members of the team that see these posts, it'll make sense to them what they're seeing. And then the last thing you can answer is you can have a digest view, you can have individual messages. Each time a question pops up, it throws in here. If you have a digest, it's all the questions from that day and or weekly, or you can see even down to 15 minutes, hour. The distinction here is just keep in mind if you put something in as a daily digest, you're going to not see anything pop up in your team for at least a day. Whenever it processes. So I'm going to put, I'm just going to say for this one, I want every hour, it's going to be a digest. So it'll be all the questions every hour related to these tags. And that's pretty much how this works. Now, you might have caught this already. What if you want to also look up, have things about C Sharp and ASP.NET? Do you just keep putting them here in one, or do you add the connector again? Very good question. Has to do with how you want to manage your team, but you can continue to add this connector over and over and over to your team. That way you can have different sets of technologies popping up in digest form or individual form, however you want it to show up. But you can have those things show up in your team in a different organized way, and that's where these name configurations will help you out. Is you could have 4 or 5 of the Stack Overflow connector running in your team to help kind of organize and present data. So I'm gonna hit save. And because I made this an hourly digest, it's going to be 60 minutes from now before this thing pops up. And as you can see here, just as I was pointing out, I've only got one configured, but I could configure more and continue to add to this. But I'm not going to right now. I'm going to just pop it in, and whoa, surprise, surprise to me. I said it was going to take an hour. It didn't take an hour. It must have grabbed an immediate um, digest for me and toss it in my team. And so here's the view. Here's what it looks like after you've used this connector in your team. You can see I've got the initial Stack Overflow notification. This is the notification of the team saying, "Hey, Ken Schaefer just created this connector, and here's the search criteria that I put in here." And then the second entry here is the digest, and you see this digest for this hour consists of 2 of the questions. One question about doing some Django admin, another about defining variables, and from here I can click on. If I click on the link, it'll take me to the Stack Overflow site to the specific question, and I can start reading through some of the answers and things like that. You see on this other one, I can begin to respond. I can add answer. I can comment on it, up, down, and view the question, which also opens up Stack Overflow. So you can see within the connector itself, even it does give me some capabilities more than just recording the question and its details. It's also letting me interact with it in such a way. And And that's pretty much how the Stack Overflow connector works inside of Teams. Pretty straightforward application that you can figure. And I think most developers already understand how to use Stack Overflow, how to use the tags in it, organize things. Which means as you use this connector in your team, the developers of your team have probably given you feedback on how to configure it and maybe even how to organize multiple instances of this connector in there. Um, Other than that, not much else to say about it. Hope that this was very helpful to you. Um, if you like what's here, give it a share. Let other people see what you can do with Teams, and look forward to talking to you again. Thank you.